I'm right here. Alrighty, so week 6. See if I can line that up. It probably looks doesn't matter. It is Friday afternoon of week 4, actually, and you all in real time are actually moving into week 5. I am going to go over today, week 6, our next dev. Okay, but in the process of working on the items for this week, and updating the dev requirements and doing my own code, I realized a couple things about this week and the way that I had selected the days. So I'm going to go over them. And I'm also going to consider, I'm going to pitch an idea that you can take advantage of. And here's the real benefit of actually paying attention to this content around the attendance stuff, because it might be an option there that you would like to take advantage of. But one thing I'd like to say in general is my process. Like my days right now, as I suspect we all are getting really, really crowded between all the duties I have and trying to develop for next semester. It's feeling a little overwhelming. So I pretty much have to do the following, which is I wake up in the morning, I grade, or I go to the gym, or I go to the gym and I grade in some order there. So that means if you want my feedback, right? The sooner you submit, the sooner you get that feedback. Asking me for feedback the afternoon of an item due, it, it may not work based on what is on my plate for that day. So I just want to tell you the process. That's actually also my way of encouraging you to work ahead a little bit. And I know there are a couple of you that are doing that, and I know that this class, based on its compressed nature, makes it really hard to do that. Okay? I get it. So what I want to do here is actually look at not me, but here we are at week 6. Okay? And in the attendance, I've already talked about this. So our week this week, we're doing week 14 and week 16, but in the way of doing it, right? It's actually in week 15 that I missed something. I thought in not week, but day 15, that it was only her showing how to do PyCharm, but there was actually a really important project there. So we are going to need to do this project. Now, having said that, and I know I'm jumping over 14 to start, but I did go through and skim the installation and look at PyCharm and understand the reasons. I didn't really see anything until actually she started into here that I felt like VS Code didn't do naturally, natively on its own. So I didn't really see the benefit for me for PyCharm, but that's probably because at the level I write with PyCharm. And as I've said before, the reason I want to use VS Code is that I don't have, I have to be able to write in multiple languages. And PyCharm, because it's meant for Python, built around Python, although it's a what we call, who builds it? Web. Oh, what company is that? IntelliJ, right? No, they have other products. So once you learn this interface, you can also use other ones as well. But that's VS Code is just my jam, and I like it, and I think it's a really good thing to use. But you can absolutely watch these if you want, okay? But absolutely, and this last project, or this project on day 15, is a really good one. As a matter of fact, the reason you want to do it, it actually feeds in, because this is where we transition. And this is what's important to know. We transition from writing procedural Python, to understanding object-oriented Python. And pretty much the rest of the class, we're going to be focused on OOP, object-oriented programming, right? So this is a major shift. And this day 16, when I first did it, because basically you're going to write this coffee machine and procedural, and this was a good challenge. I actually spent a little time getting this working. It was a really fun project. But then in day 16, after introducing the concepts, you rewrite this in OOP, but not in the way you would think, because she writes all the methods and attributes, and then all you have to do is basically write your main loop. So I'm just gonna tell you, I read some of the comments about this, and it was like people were just like feeling like this class went from 0 to 100 during day 16. Now, here's why I'm saying this is that when I look at the schedule, which I do will in a minute, it's really starting after our dev day 17, 18, where we actually get into OOP. So this item actually kind of makes a little more sense after, right? But this is the week, right? This is the week that we have, sorry, ending this week. This is the week, and let me just go look so we can be clear, right? So if we're looking at the course, um, so week 6, day 14 is the high-low program, which is mostly just a challenge here, right? And then part of 15 is what I was talking about with the procedural writing of the coffee maker program. And then day 16 is actually where we change to understanding from procedural code to OOP, object-oriented programming, the way to approach coding doing OOP. But then our dev here, right? So here's what I want to say is here's my thinking, right? Is that I think it's, and I'm going to set up this week as I have before, allowing you to kind of move through the items, not in a enforced way, but in a more flexible way. And if you want to skip this one and do it after you get your Dev 1 done, I'm okay with that. Matter of fact, I'll give you until the following Monday in the morning to get this done if you want to do that. Okay, so that's the first thing. So, do you understand what I'm saying here? Is that I'm not, and by the way, I'm not changing the due dates. I'm going to leave them the way they are. I think it'd be even more confusing if I did that. So if you want to do on this week, the day 14 and the day 15, which is the coffee making program, the first pass at it with procedural, what we've been writing so far, type of Python, right? Those are two pretty good projects, right? Both of them are good, solid coding projects. And then you could skip this, go ahead and get your Dev 1 done, right? And then move on sometime before Monday to date 16, which really feeds in to this because all of these are OOP. So that's the first option and this is not necessarily another option, but the other thing is because of where this falls on Thursday, normally if you don't submit this, and again, this is only from listening, you're going to get this offer, is that normally, right, all the time, let's just do this, right? Let me just open this in calendar, right? So your Dev 1 is still set to be due right here. Oh, I got my 15 because I was talking to them earlier. So this would be here, right? So normally if you don't submit it by the morning I look at it on the 19th, okay, it's 25% off. But here's what I'm thinking, because I understand sometimes the weekend, it's just nice to have a little more time. What I'm going to say for each day, so if you submit it by end of day or starting, right, Saturday morning, it'll be 5 points off, right? Sunday morning, 10 points off. And if you, in the last day, you can, and then on Monday morning, it's 25 points off, that normal 25%. So if normally it's Friday morning when I check, but if you do it Saturday morning, that's 5 points off the 100 points. And then Sunday morning, right? 10 points. And then if you don't see it until Monday morning, right? Then it'll be the normal 25, just as to give you a little more flexibility, right? But I think as a concern I have is that I'm actually going to make it more confusing. But if you do that and you choose the path of moving this after, you still will also need to have this day 16 done as we move into our week 7, because it's really week 7, week 8, and then week 9, we're done. Okay, so you can ask me any questions about that. And again, I'm not going to change the schedule, but this is kind of what I was thinking about here, right? So now I posted these. I'm going to move on and talk about the Dev 1 requirements. I have the sign up sheet already ready. I'll review that in just a minute. And then I posted the requirements already out on Discord. Another benefit of being on Discord is you get to see them a little bit earlier. So here they are. And so we'll just go through them and then I'll tell you kind of the next steps that I'm going to do. So you can use your concept from Dev 0 or select a different topic, right? Place your code in your private repo under dev_1. Use the main file name main.py. You can import ASCII art, data, or related content, and here are the requirements, right? So you need to add at least 2 major functionality upgrades or additions, right? So it might be taking something you've already done and doing it better based on what we've learned over this section. Now, and here's one you've already heard me talk about. Anytime you do validation, you must validate that input, at least one level validation, because I've talked to most of you about the fact that you can validate that they gave you the right kind of input, but you also need to make sure your code doesn't run something even if they gave you the right input, but logically it's wrong. So you need to handle that. This is a little more than what we've talked about, but I think everything you've seen in the course so far has set you up to do this because you've seen the while statements for doing this. Doing something while the input is not what you expect, right? Now, this next one is what I was referring to before, is I suspect most of us will take the path of doing functions, right? Functions were optional last time. They're absolutely required here. There may be some of you with more programming experience that want to go ahead and tackle OOP using methods and attributes. Now, I don't know who would do this. There might be some of you, but I suspect that I'm going to do my first round in procedural, okay? So what I'm going to say here is that you need to use doc strings if you are using functions and or methods, and you do need to have return. I need to add that. You do need to have return values that you're either updating. It doesn't have to be in a global namespace, although in the next one I do talk about at least some examples of global, locals, and constants. Okay. Store data. Store user process data in a nested nested dictionary or list of dictionary data. This is what in week 4 I had given you that assignment because she went over there, and again you can choose. I'll show you how I'm going to do mine because I already have a plan. I'm going to use JSON, and you'll see what that is. Then add some functionality commands we have not seen in this course so far, at least one. Now you could, in this sense, where you add your major functionality, also go outside of the scope of what we've done so far. Like for me, I'm actually going to end up writing to a file, my JSON data into a file. I'm going to use regular expressions to validate the user email. Okay, and so that I'm already going to do. So in my case, my 2 major functionalities will be pretty easy to knock off this requirement. You do need to update your flowchart, add your additional functionality included in the README with a short description. And here's something I want to see is a to-do list, right? So this to-do list we've seen, and it really is a planning document to help us kind of say, here are the things I need to do. I have started mine, but at least I've listed out, and I'll show you this in a minute, the things I'm going to do to add to my functionality. So actually this one is, I've already covered it up here, so I'll take it out. I've decided because this was actually, so anyway, I'll take this one out, but this one will stay, which is absolutely 100% PEP 8 compliant code. Okay. I was really surprised how few of you had been set up your editors to handle the Pi code style. I actually started requiring it in all code in week 5. So you've already seen this, okay? So this one was also something that kind of surprised me, that a couple of students were using third-party libraries on their Dev 0. So I knew I'd talk about it here, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But if you want to use them, it's fine. You just have to set up the virtual environment. And I'm actually going to show you when she first shows us how to install packages. But Dr. Angela does not cover virtual environments. And I am a little surprised, but that's okay. I got this. I know how to do this. I can give you I've already given some instruction for this. And I'll provide the links to the video I've already created and another one I do. But just to be clear, and we'll talk about the timeline in a minute, you do have to come in for a code review. If you don't come in for a code review, right, I will I will look at your code relative to these requirements, but it will start with 50% off because of not coming in for a code review. And just very much like what we did with the first one, you'll walk me through, you'll share your screen and walk me through that. Okay. All right. So let me make sure I cover a couple of things. One thing is in day, I think it's actually in day 16. So, oh, I got to do this one. I haven't done do the write up, but in day 16, she does an actual, oh no, it's 15. Oh, my bad. It's actually here on day, I have to look for a minute. Here it is. It is on day 16 where she adds packages, right? And this is where you're installing things. And this is where I'm very adamant that before I would ever install something into my system, I'd want to have it virtualized. So what I ended up doing, and I recorded a video showing you all how to do it, and I'll just show you in the code itself. You can see it. It was here, and day 16 is I created another folder called Coffee Machine. And this is where I installed my virtual folder. Okay. And again, there's a video showing you this, right? So, the only reason she did this was to do something called Pretty Table, which I really like and may consider using. But my point about this is that on this day, which I got to do the write up for, she does install a package. And I want you to know that anytime you install a package for dev work, you definitely need to do virtualization. I would not install packages without virtualization. I can't tell you what to do on your system. I can only make suggestions for that. Okay, whew, a lot there, right? So coming back to our dev one, I think I've gone over all of it. Now let me show you what my plan is. So here's my functionality I'm adding into my dev 0 is I'm going to store my EV data in a JSON file. Okay, so I'm going to handle the writing of the file. So this is my additional functionality. Remember, this is not what I'm telling you you have to do. This is what I'm going to do, okay, in order to add some functionality, which also covers it using something outside of the course. So here's the JSON file format, the structure I will be using. So you can tell it's a dictionary with a list inside. So it's a dictionary with nested list. And actually, the list is a list of dictionaries. Okay, so this is a very common JSON file format structure, and that I will write code to write my entries into that format. And I will also validate, so I'll ask the user for their email, and you could have already seen it here, so that I would already set up my code to have multi-user environment. So whenever the user logs in, it tracks all of them in one big JSON, but then it pulls out the data to give them then their own EV data. Because I'm writing to the file, I'm going to have to use a try catch block. It's absolutely mandatory that if you're reading from a physical file, you need to do that. And then I'll do the user validation with a regular expression. Okay. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plan on doing a video this weekend once I get my code done. I'm kind of halfway there. I'm pretty close. I'm writing my JSON file, reading to it, calculating my cost. calculating the email. So I'm getting pretty close. I think that should be doable, right? And then the other thing is I'm adding a filter to do reporting on EV charging by email. Okay. So, but the major functionality I would be adding is writing to this JSON file. And really using a regular expression and validating an email input for that. Okay. This other stuff is just because I have to, if I'm going to write to a physical file, you got to do that. Now, if I have time, if I don't, this is definitely for sure. I know the path for me to my dev zero because we'll all be doing taking whatever concept we have and rewriting it in OOP for our last dev. Okay. All right. So that's my plan for that. I've gone over now at least a high level on the requirements. And so, what I will do over the weekend is I'm behind. So, what I need to do is actually back up a little bit. You probably this is probably too soon for most of you because by the time you get here, it'll be done. But I have to grade the week 4. And what I'm going to be doing from here on out is actually pulling your data. I've been pulling your code for devs, but now I'm going to start pulling your code for all this stuff because I want you to write PEP 8 from here on out. I'll show you one more time how you do that, or at least how you do the plugin. You go to the command palette, you type Python, select linter, and then you just choose Py code style. And then what happens is if your code, like for me, I have no problems here. And you can come in here and look. Most of it's just related to spacing, maybe lines being too long. Again, there's good discussion that's been happening out on Discord around that. So let me go back and make sure I covered everything. There is a sign up. Okay, so actually, this might be a good thing to kind of throw here at the end, right? So I have not changed the sign up to reflect the deal that I've given you in this video. So you'll have to do that on your own, right? But understand that meaning. But you can absolutely still sign up for um, times, right? These are basically just my office hours. This is before the due date, right? This is after the due date. And what happens is normally I go all the way through Thursday, but what happens is we have Thanksgiving here. So I'm going to also have two, and these are just for doing code reviews, right? After the due date, unless you're taking advantage of my 5 days, 5 points, and then all the points off if you go all the way to the following Monday to submit. So I know this could, let me come back here. This could possibly create a little more questions. I understand that, and it is not my intention. Just trying to navigate where we're at with this course and where we're at with the timelines. The reason I can't just absolutely move things around is there's no there's no wiggle in the time. We have to end this class at week 9, and we have one last dev after. So dev 0 is gone, dev 1 is gone, dev 0 is heading at you, and you have one last dev 2 at the end of the semester. Okay. Thanks so much. Have a good week. I'll talk to you soon.